Alright, so here we are in scene view. I'm just going to go around and explain what each of these components does and how you use them and set them up in the editor. And then I'll go into the game view and show how they work. So the most confusing one that we have is this fridge right here, and that's because it's made out of multiple interactables, which includes this door that rotates out and this door that slides out. And so for a normal door, the setup that we have here is so you have a parent that is the pivot point of the door, and that can just be an empty transform. You don't put the script on this one. This one is just a pivot, it's also the parent. And then under that, we have the mesh, which will have the door script on it because that's what gets selected and highlighted when the player's looking at it. And you don't need to set the outline, and the outline width and speed are fine on their own usually. But you can change it if you want. And then we have two settings here, one-sided and left pivot. So one-sided means it's not gonna open inwards. It's only gonna open out, because like a house door, you'd want that to open both ways depending on just what side of the door you're on. But something like this, you only want it to open one side. We also have left pivot check, and that makes sure that the pivot is on the left side versus the right side. So because this one's opening on the left, make sure that you have left pivot checked. Then you have the speed and the lock distance of the door, so that just means how fast it's going to open and how close to being finished will just lock into place and finish the lerp that it does between the two rotations. And that's the basic door. Then we have a sliding door down here, and the sliding door I think is actually easier. So sliding door, you have this slide open script on the mesh itself, and you just have to set a target position and a default position. The default position should have the same transform as the mesh that you have the script attached to, and the target position, of course, is where it's going to slide to in its lerping function. And just make sure these two are not children of the original door, because that will mess things up. Alright, so I went through sliding door, but here's an example of another sliding door. This one I actually have the script on the handle, so that it's not when you look at the whole door that it asks you to open it, it's only when you look at the handle. But I can have the other mesh as a child of it, and it will open all the same. But as you can see here, we have the target and default position transforms that are children of the bigger parent. That's just an empty transform. And this is where it starts. This is where it finishes, and that's how it opens. Pretty self-explanatory. The normal door here, you have empty parent transform, the mesh with the script attached, and this one I don't have one-sided or left pivot checked. It's a normal door, which means it opens both ways, which just means it will open out based on the pivot, and it will open out depending on what side the player's on. Button and switch. So a button is just an interactable that activates the interact function remotely of another interactable. So you can set this up to, like, if you want a button to open a door, you can have a button interactable and just drag on the target door, and then when you press the button, the door will open. That sort of deal. And here I have a light switch though, which is another custom version of the button, which just pretty much takes the little light switch right here. It works the same as the button, but it also has a switch that flicks up and down, which is a small detail but nice to have. And here is the sound source. Sound source is actually pretty cool one. You have multiple functions in the sound source that you can use on Interact. So if we go to the radio, so the actual radio isn't an interactable. It does have a sound bank, which is where we store all the sounds that the radio will cycle through. That script is in documentation too if you're interested. It's pretty simple. But each of these buttons on the radio is its own interactable that has its own function. So you have the sound source interactable, and then you hook it up to the audio source and the target sound bank, and then you can choose between these actions for the button to do, which is play, pause, next, previous, or one shot. Those are pretty self-explanatory if you're familiar with the audio system. And using conjunction, you can make something like a radio or a jukebox or anything having to do with audio. Right here we have a seat. The seat ones are pretty easy. You just attach it to a mesh, and you just have a transform, which is where the person will sit, where you want the player transform to be when they're sitting on it, And then you have a dismount transform, which is where the player will go when they dismount from the seat. Alright, and here are the most fun ones, which is the pickups. We have the pickups can be usable or not. What that means is in the pickup component, you have a use event, which means when the person activates the use function on whatever you have picked up, does it run a custom Unity event. This is super awesome because for the flashlight, I have like another script attached called flashlight that just turns on and off. And then I just drag this script in here, choose the function, flashlight on off, and then whenever I click with this in my hand, it will run that custom Unity event. So this allows you to do anything from like weapons and items and tools, or if you want something to do a custom animation, you can do that all with this simple use event right there. And now I'll go into play mode and just show how these work. So here's the fridge. It has both an opening door, and as you can see, the door locks at the end of the alert just to make sure that's finished. Same with the sliding door. And it's cool, we got 2 doors on this thing, and the cool functionality of the way I've coded it is so you can drag rigid bodies in this, and even if you drag the object, it will still open equally as well. In the code, I think it even works if it's moving while you're opening it, but I don't know when that would happen, but I just coded it in just in case. Here's the sliding door. Pretty simple. So here's the door opening out, and then when I go to the other side, it will open the other way, which is super nice. Don't have to worry about anything or animations for that. Here's the switch. I have it hooked up to the sun actually, so it makes it dark when I turn it off. And here's the radio. Play pause. You can skip songs or go back songs. Super fun right there. Lots of functionality you can do. Here's the seat. You sit down, and when you look at the seat, the tooltip comes up to leave. So that way, it's not just always there when you're sitting in a seat. You can kind of look around, and then when you look at the chair, it tells you what you got to do to get up. And here's the pickups. So we have both pickups. So if you press E on a pickup interactable, it'll go into your open hand that you have. And as you see at the top, I have something here. I'll go into full screen. So at the top, I have all the text with the controls and also what hand is active. You can make your own custom UI to show this for your game. But when you press X, it switches which hand is active. So right now, my left hand's active. When I pick an item up, it'll go on my left hand. If something's already there and I try to press E, it won't pick it up. But as you can see, I can switch to my right hand and then it'll go on my right hand. But the other thing you can do with, it doesn't need to be a pickup, just any rigid body, is if you hold F, you can pick it up or drag it. So with that one, because it's light, I'm allowed to move it up and down and lift it. But for heavy objects like this couch, you have to pull on the ground. And this makes the world a lot more interactable. You can do things like rotate items when you pick them up. So let's take this right here. You can pick up the lamp and rotate it, look at it. Super fun, like inspection. You can also right click will reset the rotation, and you can drag the mouse wheel to pull it back and forth if you want to put items exactly where you want it. And then, so with pickups, you can either drop them by pressing Q or throw them by pressing G. And if items in your right hand, you right click to run its Unity event function, or if it's in your left hand, you left click. And I think it's intuitive and kind of easy to get a grasp of, and then you can allow players to have 2 items at the same time, which I think is really useful and fun, and also unique. I don't think many games have that. So yeah, I hope these tools will help your game development, and let me know what you make of it. Thank you.